Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Pool Party webinar series. I'm Jessica Van Evenhouse, Product Marketing Strategist here at the Semantic Web Company, and I'm here to host today's webinar called What's New in Pool Party Semantic Suite 7.0. So today we have CTO Robert David and data engineer Alex Jackson of Semantic Web Company here to run through the latest and greatest features of our newest release. But before we jump into the webinar, please note that all attendees are muted. If you have any questions, please enter it into the question panel located in the GoToWebinar console. On that note, I would like to give a warm welcome to Alex and Robert. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody joining us in this webinar session today. Thank you very much for that introduction, Jessica. To get right started off the bat, we're going to talk about the new functionality in PoolParty 7, where we talk about PoolParty actually supports the full linked data lifecycle. This has been a long time coming for PoolParty, where we've completed a lot of points on this circle, but now we really are very proud to say that we actually are fully integrated and completely support the linked data lifecycle, and things such as tools using ingestion. We can look at unified views or even the PoolParty extractor, to where we want to actually author or clean the data. We can even start to look at our new tool that we will introduce in this webinar today, the PoolParty graph editor. And of course, data enrichment, we look maybe even at the classifier provisioning. We again integrate unified views. And then finally, in our data analysis, we can even build a third-party application for your company. But out of the box, we support PoolParty graph search that's available for you from PoolParty 6 and higher.
So for PoolParty 7, we have a lot of new features. Mainly, we can now manage all the data in connected remote graph databases. We have a new feature, the graph editor, which allows an ontology-based editing of RDF data. We have PoolParty notifications, where you can notify integrations based on actions in the Thesaurus manager. We have improved our ontology management and also our user management. And finally, we have a Neo4j integration. So with PoolParty 7, you can manage all the data in connected graph databases, which allows for a more agile data management. You can distribute the data into multiple stores, easily move the data between these stores, and of course you can benefit from the clusterability of the stores. Let's switch to our PoolParty instance here. First of all, we can move the metadata. Here we have a new dialog where you can select a specific metadata repository. So we have user data, corpus meta information, PoolParty Thesaurus server system core information, custom schemes, and the graph search system information. And they can be moved freely between connected remote graph databases. So here we see several configured stores. For example, this startup metadata here, and we can decide that we want to have our custom scheme information in this remote store. So we can save it. It moves it over to the remote store. And you can work with this data directly with the PoolParty instance in the remote store. So we can see here, custom scheme is now located at startup metadata. We can also move it back. So you can move it between the stores. The same is true for the project data. If we open a project, you can decide if the project is now in the local store or in the Stardog or whatever remote system that you defined. So our next feature is the PoolParty graph editor, which is an ontology-driven custom editor to work with graph data. You can select multiple graphs of any remote triple store that is configured to work on this. You can import and export RDF graphs, benefit from assisted search over graph data, benefit from bulk editing over this graph data. You can administer graphs with user-friendly inline editing, and you can also generate Sparkle queries for the selected filters that you have defined for your graph editor. So here we can see two graph editors. If we select this one, we have first a configuration where you can select one or more graphs from the connected remote graph database. You can select if this graph data should be editable or not. So you can combine it, editable information with non-editable. For example, if you want to display linked information but do not want to edit it. The user interface, the filter options, and also the result table is generated based on one or more selected custom schemes. Here we see that the architecture scheme is selected. And the third tab in the configuration shows the label mappings, which defines predicates in the data that are used for autocomplete functionality. So here we see already pre-configured filtered search. We have a lot of filter options. For example, a class-based filter where you can filter the data based on an RDF type of the resources. We can select predicates, like showing the pref label. Here we have the designed property where we can select different query options. So we can select data that has this predicate. We can select data that has this predicate with specific values. We can show the data in the result table regardless if the resources have this predicate or not. So we'll get a mixed view for resources that have values and that then do not have values. And finally, we have the option to select all the resources that do not have this predicate. Here we have some other options, and if we do a search, these all filter options are taken to generate the result. Here we see our architects example, where we see that this architect is also classified as a person and an agent. We see the pref label, and we see all the buildings that are designed by this architect based on this designed property that we selected. So we have here a tabular view on the resources. If we want to see everything, we can go to the details view, which now shows all the information similar to what you have in the Thesaurus Manager. On the left side, you can see the relations, and on the right side, you can see the attributes. For this data, we also support showing the Sparkle query that is used to generate this search result based on the filters that are selected. So you can copy that to your clipboard and use it in integrations. If we select some resources, we now here have the option to do bulk operations. So we have three options. You can add data to all the selected resources. You can remove data from the selected resources, and you can delete all the resources. So for adding and removing, you will select a specific property that should be added or removed, and this is then applied to all the selected resources. So that was the PoolParty graph editor. Let's go to the next feature.
So the next feature that we introduce in PoolParty, especially in regards to integration scenarios, we introduce notifications. This is quite a vital step when we move more into large user bases that are editing and working in projects, because some people do need to stay informed on various actions that are taking place inside a project. So now we have the ability to send you a webhook notification to your webhook system that can then be further integrated with and have further actions upon it, be it that a unified views pipeline runs and sends different departments various different emails to inform them what's happening and what's changing in the taxonomy. This is all now possible in PoolParty notifications. This also means that we're able to support multiple notification settings per project. The notifications are, of course, sent via a webhook, and then we can connect to APIs to consume these notifications. So if we switch to our demo server again, we see here that we have this new notifications tab in PoolParty with a pre-configured notification. This notification is set to a frequency of immediately. This can also be changed, be it every 15 minutes, every hour, or once per day. These also then mean that if we're not using immediate notifications, are of course then sort of built up into a queue, which you would see here. Of course, it's not available for this frequency, but you would see that notifications could be built up in a queue. And this one is acting on 2 triggers. This means that when we set up the notification, we set up 2 triggers that will activate this notification. So in this case, it is create concept and delete a concept. And we support many other triggers as well in PoolParty that are also available for you to look at and use. And this then, of course, is how you would set it up, and you would determine the frequency, etc. And you would see here that it's going to a request bin service that we're using, and it's sending to that service there, where we will be able to then read and view the notification in terms of a webhook API, and then consume this and integrate it further in other integration scenarios.
Our next feature for PoolParty 7 is the improved ontology management, where we reworked the whole user interface to be more streamlined with the other PoolParty features. So on the left side, you now have a tree view, like in the Thesaurus Manager, and on the right side, you have a details view. We also improved the language handling for the ontologies. You can now specify multiple languages, and the shown label is determined based on a priority list. And finally, we also implemented group-based access rights for ontologies and custom schemes, which are applied to the ontology feature itself and also on the applied ontology information in the Thesaurus projects. We switch to our PoolParty instance. And here you can see on the left side the new tree view of the custom schemes and ontologies. So we have the custom schemes here listing the defined custom schemes of this PoolParty. And for the ontologies, we further divide between the core ontologies and the custom ontologies that are defined. On the right side, you can see a summary overview of the ontologies that are also shown in the tree. Let's take a more detailed look at an ontology. You can see the details of the metadata actually. Further down, we have classes, relations, and attributes. Can show the classes here. Selecting a class shows the details of this class. And again, like in the Thesaurus Manager, on the left side you have relations, and on the right side you have attributes. You can edit and delete it there. We also support visual representation of subclass and subproperty relations. So here you can see the building being a subclass of place. So we also represent that in the tree. The same holds for subproperty relations. So the language handling was also improved. Here we can now edit the languages. We have a long list of supported languages. And here we can see for the selected languages, we have English and no language. And this is can be seen as a priority list. So the PoolParty will first look for an English label in the data and show the English label as a priority. And if there is no English label, it will look for a label without a language tag and show this. If the resource, the ontology element, doesn't have one of these defined languages at all, then it will default to the URI. So regardless of how your data looks like, you can always present it visually in the PoolParty features and can manage it there. And we also support user groups now. Here you can see the user group selection like you have for the Thesaurus projects. And the access will be determined based on this group, not only for the ontology editing here, but also for the instance data in the Thesaurus project.
We also improve our user management in PoolParty. This is now to give a more fine, granular project user management overview. You can see here in the screenshot that we offer then much more permissions on the server per user role. This, of course, is also extended to project permissions, which means that it's definitely a lot more fine tuned and controlled. So one could be a super admin for the server to grant users access, for example, but maybe you don't want the super admin touching a specific project and editing anything, so that permissions can then be removed and changed. This also means that we support now action-based role management, so that we can also define project-based roles per user. So going back into PoolParty demo, we have here the new user management overview. It's also again now a tree overview to make it much more consistent with the project overview in the Thesaurus, as well as the ontology and scheme view as well. And here you can see we have some configured users, and for example, the super admin user has some various authorizations, such as the roles. You see now we also support two new roles, basically, is the API admin and the API user. These two roles also give us more control about which users can do what in the API. We don't want all API users to be able to manipulate the data and be able to destroy something. So we separate that between user and admin so that these two roles are able to then have the right access and control in terms of API. This, of course, can be seen in terms of what these user roles are allowed to do. So you see server permissions, what they have access to and what they're able to do. And of course, this, when you're open in a project and have access to a project, you can see then what permissions they have as that role in this specific project. This, as you can see, is different to what we see on the server permissions, and that's because we offer the possibility to control what actions and permissions the users have on that project level to make it much more granular and fine controlled. So the server permissions mean when they log in, they have server-wide access to various things, but then when you go on specific project changes, the project permissions will override those server permissions, and that will take control, and that will ensure that specific projects could be protected or allowed to be more editable, etc. This, of course, is shown here when we have our project tab. So when you have a project open, you'll see which users are active in the project, and you'll be able to see then, of course, again, what roles the person or you can assign what roles the person would have. So if they had selected roles here, these would be the specific roles that they would only be allowed to have in the project. Even if they've got global server-wide rules, as you can see here, this message informs you that these roles will override what they've got. And then, of course, this then populates to the permissions. So you would see, based on what roles are set, these are the permissions that you have in terms of the user management access. This, of course, has been extended as well to the ontology information tab. So you see here, when we look at an ontology, we have now user groups. This means we can also now control which user groups have access to work on an ontology. It's no longer that you have to be an admin and you can see all ontologies. We can also now hide and show various ontologies based on which user groups you belong to. We also support in PoolParty 7 now a Neo4j integration. This means only that you can that we support the project ontology custom scheme to be exported to Neo4j, but the Neo4j database can, of course, be configured by the Semantic middleware configurator supporting that, but of course only the project ontology and custom scheme data can be exported there. This means we do not support, for example, the graph editor to work on top of Neo4j.
We also improved our DBpedia linking service to provide better matches and also disambiguation for our DBpedia linking. This is based on a new service that we developed. So we are not anymore querying directly the dataset, but we have a more intelligent system, which is based on Solr and the spreading activation algorithm. Let's take a look at the disambiguation example here, which is showing two companies. So it's Apple and Samsung. And if we try to link Apple to the DBpedia, doing a search, so we get here a resource. And this resource is showing the fruit, not the company, which is probably intended by this thesaurus. We also have Samsung here as a company, and we take a look at this. Having Samsung as a result, we can select it as a match and save it. So now the thesaurus has the information that Samsung is linked to the DBpedia resource Samsung. And if we go to Apple again and try to link it now, we see that it disambiguates the information, and the first result now is the Apple company, as you can see here. So this disambiguation takes into account links of siblings, parents, and children nodes in the thesaurus to try to disambiguate the search results.
We, of course, look at improving the extractor APIs in PoolParty 7. So we have now improvements on the extraction rules and the limit results, as well as exact matching for entity extraction. But we also offer new functionalities. Now we have the annotate method in the PoolParty extractor, which can manipulate the output with a SPARQL query, but it also extends the whole entire functionality of the PoolParty extract API method. And of course, we include the named entity recognition integration. And this also is then populated as well in the corpus analysis. We can use natural language processing and statistics, custom scheme information. And we also have improved the concept scoring in the corpus analysis. For example, in PoolParty's extractor API, we can now define extractor rules and limit results. So this means the extraction can now be restricted to concepts that are in a specific concept scheme, have a specific class, or have certain attributes and relations or relations. This also means that when we look at concepts in the taxonomy, we can add the possibility as well for exact matching for entity extraction. This is quite vital when we're talking about words that are spelt very specifically. As you can see here, semantics has a small I. It's a very specific spelling. So we want to make sure that this concept is exactly matched. This is also quite vital when we think about medical, for example, when we're looking at such as HIV or AIDS, they're spelled capitalized, and we want to make sure that these are exactly matched and found in the entity extraction, so that we're not mapping, because it could be that the document is mapped very badly and written very badly, and we find HIV in lowercase somewhere, and we're not looking at that example of that HIV. We're trying to find where HIV is actually spoken about and written exactly in capitalization. So this helps to improve the extraction results. This, as I mentioned as well, we've extended the PoolParty extractor annotate service, so you can transform your output with a Sparkle query. The output of the annotate method is RDF data, so we can construct the output to be a specific set of RDF data, making it more fine controlled and more granular in terms of an integration scenario. And of course, we now offer the full functionality that we have in the PoolParty extract API call. So all extract API call results that you can get in the extract in JSON format, you can now get in the PoolParty extractor annotate service in RDF format.
For the PoolParty corpus analysis, we also have an improved scoring now. We added scoring for the concepts, which is based on the matched labels of this concept. So we're able to calculate a score for the concept too. And we also use an NLP and statistics custom scheme to be able to add statistical information to the concepts. So if you activate this option for the corpus analysis, you will get statistical results generated for the matched concepts in the corpus, which are attached to the thesaurus information. And you can see here the frequency and score for each of the corpora where this concept was found.
We, of course, include named entity recognition, as I mentioned earlier. So we now support named entities being extracted in the extract services. This being extract call as well as the annotate call, of course, as both of these methods are synchronized. This means that it also complements PoolParty's vocabulary-based entity extraction method. And now we really have two methods that are supported by default. So we have maximum entropy classification. This means person, location, organization. More specific classifiers can be added programmatically. And then, of course, rule-based recognition. So we can look at an example of using regex expressions in a rule-based recognition. So if we look just briefly at this demo here, we have built a very small demo that you can also have a look at later, where you can upload a contract and define some rules that should be met. These rules are built on regex patterns, and the document will then be sent to unified views in the backend with the specific rules. Unified views will run the pipeline that includes the information about what rules it should be running, how to run it, what's really set for that rules information, and you would be presented with the results if the document, for example, met the confidentiality rule or the penalty rule, for example.
For PoolParty Unified Views, our data orchestration tool, we reworked and improved the user interface to be also more streamlined with the general PoolParty look and feel. We also added new features in the backend. So first, we migrated to Java 8 and RDF4J. And we now also support storing the configuration and working data in RDF stores. So we do not longer need a relational database to keep this metadata for the running pipelines there. We use a built-in RDF4J store. So we are now fully working with RDF only for unified views. And we also have a new deployment. We have one installer for all and also a Docker distribution. And of course, we have new DPUs available. So here you can see the reworked and improved user interface. It now much more follows the general PoolParty look and feel for a better user experience.
And to mention some of the new DPUs, as Robert has demonstrated earlier with the dbpedia linking, where we can also disambiguate, we now offer this functionality of batch linking. So we have a DPU to do dbpedia batch linking. We have RML mapping, R2 RML, for example. We can quite a nice integration scenario as well with getting JSON information from the PoolParty APIs, especially the extract call. We get that response in JSON. We can transform this to XML, which can then also be, of course, further manipulated because we can put this into XML RDF format. And of course, we offer that vice versa because it's just a reverse of the functionality. So we can also send it back to JSON for other integration statuses. We include here a DPU for machine learning based extraction. We have also a DPU for Thomson-Reuters OpenCalais extraction. We have a DPU that correctly prepares all the content for graph search as required, no longer needing to write directly to the index. We can prepare that information all from the DPU itself and then send that correctly across. And of quite a nice improvement, especially in terms of the enterprise environment, we now support a multi-threaded concept extraction in the extractor DPU, which gives us a lot more possibility to run a lot more integration scenarios where we can extract a lot of information and transform that and present it in tools such as Graph Search or Graph Editor.
Further changes and improvements are the improved security for PoolParty 7. So we now follow OWASP risk mitigation strategies. And we also have improved security for login. We have a password history. You can configure allowed login attempts. We can enforce a password change. And we also have captcha support for unlocking again. Unfortunately, we do not support the Internet Explorer anymore, but of course we support the Edge browser.
So you might be asking yourself, what's next for PoolParty, seeing as we can do so much already and we fully support the linked data lifecycle. And now we want to look at things in our product roadmap where we can see things such as fact extraction and pattern recognition. So we've seen a very small demo where I showed you that we can use some regex parameters that can meet some specific conditions. This can then, of course, be extended where we can look for certain things such as facts like a person starts working at a specific organization or a specific condition is met in a contract. And this information can be extracted and transformed into RDF triples, giving us much easier ease of use in integrations. And of course, as you've seen in that demo, that's our first prototypical implementation that we've successfully done.
For the extended linking and machine learning capabilities, we want to look more deeper into what you can use unified views for to support a high quality data processing and analysis. So we want to look into integrating machine learning algorithms and also data validation standards like Shackle, which can be used for constraint checking on the processed data to ensure the consistency and quality. For ontologies and rule-driven quality assurance, we also want to look into the other components of the linked data lifecycle to further develop more quality assurance and repair mechanisms for all the components along the linked data lifecycle to also guarantee the data stability and quality there. And for the scalable architecture, we want, of course, to scale the data processing for all this data along the linked data lifecycle by integrating big data technologies and scalable architectures, providing clusterable triple stores for higher throughput and stability, more fail-safe scenarios to be able to handle large amounts of data.
And of course, with analytics and visualization, we look at implementing always state-of-the-art analytics and visualization capabilities throughout all components so that we can support authoring taxonomies, ontologies, and of course, generic RDF data. But not only do we want to analyze this information, we also want to visualize it, and then we want to have the ability to be able to support the navigation and exploration of the whole knowledge graph so that we have a much better overview of what's available to us.
Thank you, Alex. So this was an overview of the new PoolParty 7 features. And now I would like to ask you if there are any questions.
Thank you, Alex and Robert. That was a great presentation, and it's exciting to see what's coming to us with the product roadmap. So we do have some questions coming in, and just a reminder that you can enter your questions in the question panel in the GoToWebinar console. We will try to get to all of your questions, and if we don't manage today, someone from the PoolParty team will be following up with you. So the first question is, what are the advantages of moving the data to remote stores?
Yes, moving the data to remote stores, of course, provides the possibility to move it to a clusterable triple store so that you have a more fail-safe scenario for your data. But also you can have higher throughput using this cluster. And also you can distribute your data among multiple triple stores to spread it out and probably increase the performance depending on your use case.
Thank you, Robert. The next question we have here is, what are the difference of the graph editor compared to the thesaurus SCOS editor?
So the graph editor is based on ontologies only. So for the thesaurus manager, you know that you have to start with a SCOS-based model and then can extend it with ontological information. But for the graph editor, we decided to have a more open approach to managing the data. So you just define one or more ontologies, which then create the filter options for your filtered search, and also the result table where you can manage the data.
The next question we have here is, what is a DPU?
That's actually quite a great question. It's a DPU actually stands for data processing unit. This is I like to explain it as a small stepping stone in unified views in a pipeline. You would connect one or multiple DPUs to achieve a specific goal, such as data transformation and ingestion, and you would use various DPUs, data processing units, that would configure to do specific tasks to help you achieve this process along the line.
Thank you, Alex. The next question, I think, is a follow-up question to that. Could you comment a bit more on the R2RML DPU?
Yes, of course. The R2RML DPU is actually quite a great DPU that we've been working to get on a solid basis. This is quite a strong DPU because now we can really support being able to access your RDB information and map this to RDF information. This helps a lot in integration scenarios, and I know a lot of customers and a lot of interested parties are coming with RDB sort of information. So being able to transform this in a DPU gives us a lot more flexibility, being able to map this gives us a lot more flexibility in terms of transformation and integration.
Thank you again, Alex. The next question here is, what is Neo4j?
Yeah, Neo4j is a property graph based store, which is related to how data is stored in RDF, but quite different. But for PoolParty 7, we support an export functionality that you can export your RDF data. It gets transformed into the Neo4j data model and it's stored there. And there you can use the Neo4j features like visualization on the data.
Thank you. The next question is, can user permissions be set on concept schemes within a project, or do they remain on project level?
Yes, and unfortunately, the project permissions are on project level alone. This is quite a huge step from the original server-wide permissions, meaning we have of course, a lot more fine granular control. Yes, it would be very interesting to try and understand and have the project based on a concept scheme level. Currently, that's not supported. This is definitely something that we look more into in the future to see how it would be in terms of an integration. But it's not an easy integration because there are a lot of instances and a lot of ways to bring concept scheme information into PoolParty, being as it could be RDF information, and be it this sort of needs to be approached correctly and understood correctly so that we don't implement it and then lose access to specific parts of concept schemes in a project, losing data or making data not visible to us, which can be quite detrimental to the project. So of course it's not something that's taken lightly and just enabled. We'll look a lot deeper into the integration of this.
Thank you. The next question here is, what statistical model is your plain score rank based for your concept extractor? Like, how is the ranking calculated?
Yeah, the ranking is calculated on a quite complicated method based on the occurrences of all the terms and concepts within the corpora. Of course, you get a ranking on the sort of the most common occurrence of each of the word forms, which form an order over concepts and terms.
Great. The next one is, what is Thomson Reuters Calais product you can integrate or import?
Yes, this is quite also a good question. Thomson Reuters has this Open Calais project where there's a possibility to also get more information, such as what we do with DBpedia. So naturally, we offer this integration scenario, and previously in PoolParty, you could connect to the API information of this and use it in PoolParty. But of course, having a DPU that has access to this means that we can now also build better integration scenarios and transform and improve your information or include more information that's relevant to you.
Great. The next question is, should we use Wikidata and or DBpedia, or maybe both, to decipher concepts and express same as, etc.?
Maybe Robert, you would like to take control of this one?
Yes, Alex, thanks. So for the DBpedia linking, we currently only support DBpedia information. The new system, which also disambiguates the search terms, but can also be used for different data sets. So the algorithm is generic and not really specific to a data set. So all you need is the graph information for your matching concepts, and you will be able to do the linking and disambiguation also there.
Great. So I think this is a follow-up question. Can we have the DPpedia linking functionality point to a different encyclopedia?
Yeah, I mean, the DBpedia is configured in the semantic middleware configurator. Basically, this means that we're pointing, of course, to DBpedia. So if we take a quick look at this as well in the semantic middleware configurator, we'll see that it's linked open data. There we go. So we have possibilities to integrate with DBpedia, and for example, here we point to two DBpedia instances where we have an English and a German version. But of course, we have other linked open data sources. So you can also look at things such as GeoNames or Getty or this PermID in terms of OpenCalais and Thomson Reuters, etc.
Great. I think I'm just gonna take a few more questions. The next one is, when will PoolParty ontologies be visualized and edited using libraries such as ogma.js?
Yeah, it's also a good question. I mean, it's sort of on the final point in terms of what's next in PoolParty. We talk about looking at analytics and visualization. So currently, if you would want to visualize the ontology informations using this JavaScript library, you would need to build an integration application that would access this library and use it, but of course access the PoolParty information via APIs. As we move into the future, and especially as we want to concentrate on analytics and visualizations in terms of our roadmap, we then, of course, don't say no to this in terms of even having it possibly integrated or not. We're not sure yet. It's just something that we will look into and spend a lot more effort and resources into ensuring that we provide the best and easiest and nicest visualization tools in that aspect.
Thank you. The next question is Shackle supported in Graph Editor?
So for the graph editor in PoolParty 7, we not yet support Shackle for data validation, but we already developed a prototype that we demonstrated recently on several occasions, which where you can use Shackle shapes to perform checks on the graph editor data. So this is currently in development. We have a prototype running already, and we will definitely follow on that in future PoolParty versions, because we think that data quality and stability is really an important issue, and we want to support checks for that for all the components on the linked data lifecycle.
Yes, I hear that many people are excited about this, so we're excited to hear more about this in the future, I think. Okay, so the last question here is, do the user roles, permissions, etc., follow any of the existing standards?
Yeah, I mean, the user roles and permissions are quite generic standards. We have things such as edit, delete, update information. So one could say so, yes, but of course the user roles and permissions are also then PoolParty specific, because we offer a lot of different functionality in PoolParty. So such as working with the classifier, for example, do we want specific people to be able to delete, write, or read from the classifier, for example? So of course you do see this generic things such as delete, write, read, but we also have it then specific to PoolParty in terms of what's available in PoolParty and what one is able to do.
Thank you. So thank you, Robert and Alex, for demoing all of those new features and for answering all of the questions. And thank you to all of you, our participants, for listening. That's all the time we have for today. For a recording of this webinar, as well as past webinars, please check out our website at poolparty.biz. So thank you for joining us and have a great rest of the week.